She was in my closet. Not hers. Not the walk-in we designed together when we moved in. Mine. She stood barefoot in front of my side of the wardrobe, flipping through my shirts, holding each one up to her body in the mirror like she was shopping for the right vibe. Meanwhile, her own section, stuffed with dresses, scarves, designer jackets, was untouched. I watched from the hallway, unseen, and I swear, for a full 15 seconds, I thought maybe she was planning something sweet. A surprise. A memory thing. Maybe she wanted to wear my shirt because it smelled like me. You know, like in the movies. Then she muttered, under her breath. He likes when I wear something casual. I froze. He. She pulled out my gray button-up, the one she always said made me look like a tired high school teacher, and nodded to herself. She held it to her chest, turned sideways, examined the look, then giggled. She giggled. That sound used to be my favorite noise in the world. Now it made my stomach twist. I stepped into the room slowly and said, "Going somewhere?" She flinched, dropped the shirt like it burned her. Then, as if she'd rehearsed it all week, she straightened up and said, "Yeah, I have a date." Just like that. No shame. No hesitation. No apology. A date. In my shirt. From my closet. After kissing me goodbye just this morning and saying, "Let's try to reconnect this weekend." I couldn't even speak. Not at first. My mouth opened, but nothing came out except this breathy, pathetic half-laugh. She looked at me, tilted her head like I was being unreasonable, and added, "It's not serious. I just need to remember what it feels like. You and I, we're just stuck." I nodded. Still no words. My ears were ringing. She kept talking. I couldn't believe it. She was really trying to explain it like it was normal. Like grabbing dinner with another man while wearing her husband's shirt was something people did when things got stuck. Then, calmly, so calmly, I walked to the dresser, opened the top drawer, pulled out the little velvet box she thought I didn't know about. She went quiet when she saw it. Her eyes widened slightly. "No, wait." I opened it. Inside was the necklace. The one she told me not to touch. The one from work. It wasn't from work. It had initials on the back. AW plus CM. Alec Winters. Her boss. Callie Monroe. My wife. I didn't speak. I just held it up, watched her face go pale, then placed it on the nightstand. Then came the line. I didn't plan it. It just came out of me like a gust of ice. "You said you have a date. Then don't be late." She didn't move. I stepped back, opened the door wide, and added, "But if you leave through that door tonight, you leave everything behind, including your last name." She shook. Not from fear. From regret. And I hadn't even started packing her bags yet. She didn't say another word. Not when I stepped aside. Not when I opened the door. Not when she looked down at the necklace on the nightstand. She just picked up her purse and walked past me, wearing my shirt. The same one she used to say smelled like home. Now it smelled like goodbye. I closed the door before she even reached the bottom step. No slamming. Just a slow, final click. Then I locked it. Not out of spite. But because I knew, if I didn't, I'd be tempted to open it if she came back crying. And I couldn't do that. Not this time. I just stood there, hand on the knob, listening to her heels fade into the distance. That was the part that hurt the most. Not the betrayal, not the coldness in her voice, but the way she didn't turn back once. She had chosen someone else. In my shirt, with my wedding vows still framed by the front door. I sat down on the edge of the bed, surrounded by the kind of silence that doesn't come from peace. It comes from impact. I picked up the necklace again. It was delicate, silver, like something you'd give someone you plan to undress. Not something innocent. Not something from work. I turned it over in my hand for at least 10 minutes. It felt radioactive. The longer I held it, the more I could feel the conversations they must have had. The little jokes. The texts. The excuses. The planning. She didn't just fall into this man's arms. She built a bridge to him over time. And I was too blind, too soft, too stupid to notice. I checked her phone charger. Gone. Her toothbrush? Still there. Half her makeup? Missing. She'd been preparing for this. This wasn't an impulsive night out. It was strategic. Calculated. I walked into the kitchen. The wine glasses were still in the sink from the night before. She had told me she was working late again, but one of the glasses had lipstick on it. Red. The same red she wore tonight. I picked it up, stared at it like it might confess something. Then, something snapped. Not violently. Not dramatically. Just quietly. I cleaned the glass. dried it, put it away. Then I opened my laptop and canceled our joint bank card, froze the savings, transferred my business funds to a private account. She never really paid attention to money. She thought her charm could carry her through anything. Let's see if Alec, the creative director, was ready to pay for her Uber rides, facials, and hair appointments. I wasn't going to fight her. I wasn't going to call her. I wasn't even going to warn her. I was just going to disappear from the version of her life where I was the safety net. And deep down, I think she knew it. Because at 12:41 a.m., my phone buzzed with a single message. I'm sorry if that hurt you. I just need space to figure things out. Don't overreact. I didn't reply. I left her on read. That silence. It spoke louder than anything I could have said. And I knew. That's when the shaking started. The thing about silence is, it's addictive. Once you stop begging for explanations, once you stop reacting like a trained puppet every time she pulls a string, you begin to feel something dangerous. Control. The next morning, she wasn't home. Obviously. But her silence had changed tone. Before, it was confident, smug, entitled. But now it felt hollow. Like she was waiting for me to beg, to chase, to fight. I did none of that. Instead, I removed her access from everything. The joint calendar, the Amazon account, the smart locks. I even deactivated the fingerprint scanner she used to unlock the front door. She wouldn't know until she tried. I wanted her to try. I wanted her to feel that cold wall hit her the moment she returned, thinking this was still her safe zone. At exactly 9:22 a.m., her name lit up my phone. I let it ring. Then again at 9:25 and 9:29. I sat on the back patio drinking coffee out of the same mug she once gave me for our second anniversary. It had a faded quote on it now. Forever means something. I almost laughed. The irony burned hotter than the coffee. By 10 a.m., she finally texted. Where are you? We need to talk. No apology. No explanation. Just an assumption that I'd be waiting for the fallout. I didn't respond. Instead, I forwarded the security footage from the doorbell cam to my email. There she was, 12:37 a.m., returning in my shirt, hair messy, lipstick gone, staring at her phone, trying to unlock the front door with her fingerprint. It blinked red. She froze. Tried again. Read again. She stood there for 3 full minutes, arms crossed, bouncing slightly on her heels like a teenager who got caught sneaking in. Eventually, she walked back to her car and drove off. I saved the clip. Labeled it, Her Realization. But the real twist? That evening, I got a call. Not from her. From his wife. Yeah, Alex. I didn't even know she existed until that moment. Her voice was calm but tight, like someone trying not to cry. She said she found my number in his call history. Said she saw texts between Callie and Alec, graphic stuff, that she'd known for 2 weeks, and was trying to keep it together for the sake of their daughter. She asked if I knew. I said, last night confirmed it. We stayed on the phone for nearly an hour. Just talking, connecting dots, sharing timelines. She told me Alec had promised it was over, that he was working late, that he needed space. Sound familiar? She laughed bitterly when I said Callie told me the exact same lines. Before she hung up, she said something that stuck with me. You don't deserve this. Neither do I. Let's both stop making excuses for broken people. Click. That was the first time I felt something like peace. But peace is fragile. Because at 2:03 a.m., Callie sent a photo of my closet, empty hangers, the necklace, my gray button-up crumpled on the floor. Her caption, is this really how you want it to end? I didn't reply. She made her bed. I was just making sure she finally had to sleep in it, alone. She came back the next night. I heard her before I saw her, heels clicking on the porch, faster than usual, like she was pacing. I stayed in the living room with the lights off, pretending I wasn't home. That's when the door handle jiggled. Once, twice, then the sound of her fingerprint being scanned. 3 times. Red light. Denied. She knocked. At first soft, like she still believed I was just being petty. Noah? Babe? I left my charger. Can you open up? Charger. She thought this was about a charger. Unbelievable. I said nothing. I sat there, listening to the shallow desperation start to creep into her voice. The second knock came sharper. Noah. This is ridiculous. Can you just grow up and let me in for 5 minutes? 5 minutes. That's all she thought I was worth now. A 5-minute guilt trip in exchange for walking out on our marriage in my shirt. Then the banging started. She kicked the door once, hard, and shouted, I still live here. You can't lock me out. Yes. Yes, I could. And I did. It wasn't just the locks I changed. I had already filed the paperwork that morning to have the lease updated under my name only. The apartment was always in my name, but she'd insisted on being added to feel like an equal. Ironic, considering how unequal her choices had made everything now. I recorded the whole incident on my phone, just in case she tried to twist the story later. Her voice outside, rising in volume, started catching attention. I heard a neighbor's door open. Heard someone whisper, "Is that Callie?" She must have realized she was putting on a show, because she lowered her voice and tried a new approach. Her usual weapon, guilt. "Noah," she said, more softly now. "I know I messed up. But I didn't leave you. I needed a night. I needed to feel something again." I almost answered then. Almost walked to the door, told her what I'd discovered in the messages, how Alex's wife had called me, how I knew this wasn't a one-night mistake. But I stayed silent. I knew if I opened that door, she'd talk her way back in. That was her gift. She never apologized. She just rewrote the past until you started doubting your own pain. Eventually, I heard her start to cry. Loud. Fake at first, then it shifted. Deeper. Almost like the realization had finally pierced through whatever fantasy she'd been living in. She sat on the porch for a while. I could hear her breathing through the crack in the window. Then, in the most pitiful voice I've ever heard her use, she whispered, "I thought you'd always be there." That line shattered something inside me. Because for years, I was always there. Through her job hopping, her panic attacks, her burnout phases. When she thought she was pregnant and cried for 3 days straight. When her mom had surgery. When she hated herself. When she told me she didn't know what she wanted in life. I had always been there. But now, I was somewhere else. Not physically, but emotionally, spiritually, permanently gone. And she could feel it. At 1:34 a.m., she left. Her footsteps down the stairs weren't quick this time. They dragged. Like she didn't want the night to end without winning. But she had lost. She just didn't realize how much yet. Because tomorrow, she'd find out what else I took back while she was out chasing a better thrill. And trust me, she'd feel every bit of it. I should have known she wouldn't just disappear quietly. Callie never accepted consequences. She rewrote them. That's how she functioned. She'd rewrite the truth so well, even you started to doubt your own memory. The next day, she showed up at my job. Not a text. Not a call. She physically came into the office, bold as ever, like the last 48 hours hadn't burned our entire marriage to the ground. I had just come back from lunch. I was walking through the front lobby when I saw her, standing by reception, hair curled, wearing a blouse I'd bought her for our anniversary 2 years ago. She looked shaken, but still trying to hold it together, still trying to look like the wronged one. When she saw me, she didn't smile. She teared up immediately and started walking toward me like she was in a soap opera. "Noah, please, we need to talk," she whispered, eyes already glassy. "You won't answer my texts. You locked me out. I don't even understand what's happening." My coworkers turned to look. This wasn't just awkward, it was humiliating. She was dragging our private collapse into the fluorescent lights of my office building. I nodded toward the hallway. "Let's not do this here." We stepped into the break room. It was empty, thankfully. As soon as the door shut, she turned to me and burst into tears. Actual ones this time. Not the manipulative sobs from the porch. This was Messier. "I didn't mean for any of this to happen," she said, gripping the table. I felt ignored. I felt like we were roommates. Alec made me feel wanted again. I didn't want to fall into anything. It just happened. I said nothing. I watched her unravel in front of the vending machines. "I know I messed up," she went on. "But you don't have to burn everything down, Noah." Locking me out? Cutting off the bank cards? What am I supposed to do? That was the moment I realized something cold but honest. This wasn't about love. It wasn't even about guilt. This was about control. She was fine as long as I stayed broken, confused, and reachable. But the moment I started protecting myself, reclaiming space, then she panicked. I folded my arms. "You wore my shirt to another man's bed, Callie. You stood in our bedroom and dressed for a date while I was in the house. You called it feeling something. Now you want to come back because it didn't work out the way you pictured it?" She opened her mouth to respond, but nothing came out. I could see it now, the truth finally settling in. I wasn't mad anymore. I wasn't yelling. I wasn't even begging. I was finished. "Do you love him?" I asked. She looked down. "I don't know," she said quietly. Would you do it again? She hesitated. That second of silence, that single pause, was all I needed. I nodded. I'll have your things boxed up and delivered. Don't come back to the apartment again. If you need anything, go through a lawyer. Her knees buckled a little. Noah, please. Don't do this. You can't just erase me. You erased yourself? I replied. I'm just finally catching up. And then I walked out. I left her standing there, alone, in that blouse I bought her when I still believed in forever. She had one hand over her mouth, the other braced on the table. She looked like she couldn't breathe. But me? For the first time in years, I could. 2 days after Callie came to my job, everything changed again. I was finally starting to breathe normally, to sleep through the night, to exist in the silence without constantly replaying her voice in my head. That's when I got the email. Subject line, "You deserve the truth." It was from Alex's wife. I didn't even remember giving her my address, but I guess she found it after we spoke on the phone. What she sent me wasn't just proof. It was obliteration. Attached were dozens of screenshots. Not just texts. Photos, videos, voice notes, dates, timestamps, locations, hotel reservations in my city. One of them booked on the same weekend Callie had told me she was visiting her sister. I scrolled for nearly 20 minutes, heart pounding, watching every piece of my marriage crumble pixel by pixel. There was one voice memo where Callie laughed and said, "He's too soft to ever leave." I could scream Alex's name in bed, and Noah would probably apologize for hearing it. I dropped my phone. I sat there on the kitchen floor for a long time. Not crying, just gutted. Not because I still loved her, but because I'd spent years giving my best to someone who saw me as a placeholder. A safe bet. A backup plan. I called Alex's wife. Her name was Marin, by the way. We talked for over an hour. She wasn't angry anymore. She was just done, like me. She had already moved in with her sister. She was filing. She even joked that if we were going to lose everything, we might as well trade war stories over drinks someday. But the part that stuck with me most? She said Callie and Alec weren't even speaking anymore. Apparently, after I cut Callie off, Alex started to ghost her. Claimed she was too intense, said she came on too strong. That was his exit strategy. He'd used her for an ego boost. A fantasy. And when it got real, he vanished. So now Callie had nothing. No marriage. No affair. No soft place to land. That night, around 11 p.m., she showed up at the apartment building again. I didn't open the door. I watched from the security camera as she stood there holding a little plastic bin. Probably her things. She knocked once. Then again. Then she sat down on the welcome mat and just stared at the door. I could see her lips moving. I zoomed in later on the footage. She was repeating my name. Over and over. Noah. 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 She stayed there for 38 minutes. Didn't cry. Didn't call. Just sat. I never opened the door. The next morning, I found the plastic bin outside. Inside was my gray button-up, wrinkled, the one she wore to meet Alec. A note was folded inside the pocket. I thought I could find better. Turns out you were the best thing I ever had. I'm sorry I realized it too late. No signature. No request to come back. Just a broken truth scribbled in her handwriting. I didn't message her. I didn't say thank you. I just burned the shirt. And for the first time since she said she had a date, I smiled. For a while, things got quiet. Callie stopped showing up. The texts slowed to a drip, then finally dried up. It was like the storm had passed. Like she'd finally accepted the silence for what it was, my answer. I started sleeping through the night again. My chest didn't feel like it was going to collapse every time my phone buzzed. I even started saying my own name without flinching. Then something strange happened. About 3 weeks after the last message, I got a phone call from an old friend, Lydia. She and I had known each other years ago, long before I met Callie. We'd lost touch after she moved away, but she'd recently returned for work and heard through mutuals that I was newly single. She wasn't calling to pry. She just wanted to catch up. We grabbed coffee. One coffee turned into lunch. Then dinner. Then 2 dinners. And somewhere in the middle of telling her the whole mess, I realized I wasn't ranting anymore. I was healing. Lydia didn't ask me to forget what happened. She didn't try to paint over the wreckage. She just saw me for who I was, flawed, confused, wounded, but still there. Still someone worth showing up for. I didn't plan what came next. I didn't do it for revenge. But when Lydia invited me as her +1 to a charity gala she was co-hosting, I said yes. And when I saw the guest list, my stomach dropped. Callie's name was on it. She was attending with her company, as part of some branding initiative. She had no idea I would be there. No idea I'd show up with another woman. No idea I'd be wearing the same tailored black suit she once made fun of for being too stiff. I didn't do it to be cruel, but I did know what it would do to her. The night of the gala, Lydia looked radiant, confident, calm, beautiful in a completely different way than Callie ever was. She held my arm like she belonged there, like I did too. And when we stepped into the room, I caught sight of Callie almost instantly. She was across the hall, laughing nervously with coworkers, clutching a champagne glass like a lifeline. Her hair was different. Her smile was off. She turned and froze. Her eyes locked on me. She didn't smile, didn't blink, just stared as Lydia and I crossed the floor. I didn't walk fast. I didn't avoid her. I didn't look away. When we passed her, Lydia gave a polite nod. And me? I didn't say a word. But Callie's entire expression collapsed. You could see it in the tiny twitch of her jaw, the way her breath caught, the way her hand tightened around the stem of her glass. We didn't even have to speak. She knew. The weight of every choice she made had finally caught up to her in the worst way possible. Not with screaming, not with drama, but with calmness. With dignity. With the sight of me moving on in a way she never expected I could. An hour later, she tried to corner me in the hallway near the coat check. I saw her coming and simply turned back into the ballroom. I left her standing there in heels she used to ask me to zip up. I didn't know her a second more. She could carry the weight of silence now. Because for once, I wasn't the one trembling. 2 months later, I got one final message from Callie. No drama, no theatrics, no fake apologies wrapped in guilt. Just a short, dry email. I signed the divorce papers. I won't bother you again. I hope you find happiness, Noah. I really do. I stared at it for a while. Not because it hurt, but because, for once, it didn't. I didn't feel anger, or grief, or loss. I felt free. I'd spent so long waiting for closure, thinking it would come in some explosive argument, or a dramatic scene, or an apology so raw it would undo the damage. But that's not how life works. Sometimes, closure isn't a door slamming shut. It's the quiet acceptance that you're already on the other side. I deleted the email without replying. By then, Lydia and I were seeing each other consistently. It was slow, easy, real. She never asked me to be someone I wasn't. She never made me feel like I had to earn her respect. And most importantly, she saw value in the version of me that Callie treated like a backup plan. One Saturday, Lydia and I went hiking. At the top of the trail, overlooking the lake, she turned to me and said, "You're different lately. Lighter." I smiled. "Yeah," I said. I finally remembered who I was before I let someone else rewrite my worth. I told her everything. The whole story, not to bleed out old wounds, but to finally close them. She listened. She didn't flinch. She just held my hand. And that's when it really hit me. Callie never broke me. She just made room for someone better to find me. Not someone perfect. Not a fantasy. But someone real. Later that evening, I got a text from an unknown number. It was a photo of Callie. She looked tired, thinner, standing outside some bookstore in a hoodie, staring off into the distance. No caption, just the image. I didn't even wonder who sent it. I just deleted it. Because that version of my life, that chapter, was over. And in the silence that followed, I didn't feel regret. I felt peace.